everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome to my channel. It's Wednesday. Can you believe it? We are actually halfway through the week and we have so much to catch up on. So Wednesday mornings are always, let's talk about what happened on Teen Mom OG and sort of decipher through the reality versus the fiction that we see on the show. This last episode was an interesting one, and it covered a lot of different topics from Amber to Gary. Even Andrew showed up. Yep, that's right. This was the episode where MTV decided to show Andrew's side of the story. Although I would say it was not necessarily Andrew's side of the story, but more the producers sort of grilling him about why he did the things that he did. Okay. Before we start there, I also wanted to put a caveat here. In this episode, she talks about the footage, the audio footage, the video footage that was put out on this channel. So last fall in September and in October, I had been reached out to by a source connected to Andrew, and they had provided me a bunch of audio. In fact, it was like 12 clips of audio. And shortly after her sentencing, they provided me the Ring camera footage from the incident of what happened on July 4th. So what I did was I put together this video, which you can watch up here, and it has all of I had sort of clommed together. So I edited in a timeline from the start of the day to the end of the day, all the different things that carried on at the house where Andrew and Amber were. And it had, just basic stuff from them lighting off fireworks in the beginning of the day to how things escalated over the end of the night. So when I released that, this sort of spawned Amber to go a little bit intense. So here's how it all played out. And then I'll get into the recap. In full transparency, is I released a bunch of the audio, and then on the day of her hearing, I was notified by someone in court that there were concerns from the DA that Amber was making statements about Andrew and other people online that was a direct violation of the TRO that was in place at the time now, which is a permanent RO for 2 years or for a year. So the people the DA was concerned about that, and they wanted the footage, and they didn't know who had the footage. So someone reached out to me and said, do you have the Instagram live videos of her making these different statements? And I said, I do. And so I provided those. They said, here, email the DA. So I emailed the DA, and I sent the DA copies of her Instagram lives where she was going off and basically talking directly to Andrew and talking about her case, which was not allowed. So in court, according to my sources on the day of her hearing, she was told that she couldn't do this anymore, that making these sort of statements online was a direct violation of her probation, and that if she was serious about this, she needed to keep her mouth shut, and that this was not a good indication of how serious she was taking the situation, and that the judge sort of scolded her for what she was doing online. Well, then after the hearing, we had an opportunity to release the audio and the video of what happened that night. And so what I did was I edited all of it into a timeline. Shortly after I released that, then Amber went off on the deep end again, and she started going after me. And during that time, she was like on Instagram Live for hours. It was like 2 days that she did this back to back. And she said that she knew where I lived. She was going to fly to my state. She was going to show up here. She was going to destroy me. She was going to hire lawyers. She was going to sue me. She was going to hurt me. There was a lot that went on in those statements. And so I ended up contacting the DA because I had sent the previous stuff related to her Instagram Live. And I said, hey, she's on Instagram Live again. She's doing all of this stuff. She's making all of these threats. So do you want this footage? And the DA said, yes, please send it to me, and I will send it to her probation officer. And I said, okay. A lot of people were critical of me doing this, but my concern was that she wasn't really yelling at me. She was yelling at Andrew. I was the person she was mad at for releasing it, but I wasn't the person that ever owned that audio or video. It came from a source connected to Andrew, and so therefore her anger and ire is with Andrew. And so my concern was like, well, if this is a violation of her whatever is in place with her, you can do this with whatever you want. Okay. So that's kind of how it all situated. And the DA thanked me for sending everything over. She screamed at me online and was like, the DA didn't care. The DA didn't want this to do this, blah, 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 blah. But after that happened, and after I talked to the DA about what she was doing online, she quit YouTube, or she quit her Instagram. So after I forwarded everything to them, they went to her PO, and then suddenly she was off her social media. So that's kind of how it happened. And she hasn't addressed Andrew or me since, and that's good, right? We want her to do the things that she can to get better. So that's where we're going to start from there. Now, with the episode, let's start with the recap. So the episode starts off with what I was just telling you about, where she says that home security camera and media footage had been released footage had been released to the media, and they show a clip of her saying, "I dare you to try something," which she was talking to me. And she said that she just couldn't bite her tongue anymore. She had to address her haters online about the footage. And she said that it was one of the worst nights of her life. She said in this video, she said to me, "You said the other day you wouldn't talk about me anymore. I dare you to even say something else." And then she went on this whole long thing. Okay. And so then MTV clips this up. And this was run by TMZ. And that's true. That happened. Okay. Because of all of those videos that she was making and putting online about me, and which were effectively about Andrew. She's not mad at me because anyone would have put it out. She's mad that it got released, if that makes sense. Anyways, so after that, they cut to Christina and Gary, and this is where things got really ridiculous. So Christina's like, "I just seen the ring cams." She said, "I just seen the ring cam stuff, and I don't think, I know she can't speak about it, but and then Gary's like, "I know it's not new stuff. It's getting really old that Andrew keeps doing this." And Gary even says, it didn't even sound like the way that he's been portraying it online. So he was saying "Oh, it wasn't even that bad." And then the producer says to Gary, "Well, Andrew reached out to us and he wants to be interviewed," which is actually not true. According to when I spoke to Andrew, they had talked to him and wanted to do an interview, and he agreed to do the interview for the show. But that's what I was told. Anyways, they make it seem like Andrew's doing this. And then Gary's like, "Well, he's financially motivated to do this." And he said that he wasn't about the money. Well, Gary, are you financially motivated to support Amber? Because certainly you were once her victim too. So why all of a sudden are you dragging Andrew when you literally went through this and she went away and you got everything that Andrew, you claim, wants? You got custody, you got child support, you got to move, you got to get married. So are you the beneficiary too? Because he goes, Gary says that Andrew's doing this to provoke her on Instagram. And he knows her very well, to know how to piss her off. And if she goes back to prison, he gets custody, child support, and he can move back to California. It settles everything that he wants at this point. And he's like, he's trying to destroy her. Are you trying to help her? No, you're trying to destroy her. Mm-hmm. Right. And enabling her is really helpful, Gary. All right, so over to Catelynn. She is actually at her house. She's talking about how she'd like to get off of her medication because, she's finally doing well. And in order to do that, she needs to address some of the stuff that went on with her mother. And so she says that she's going to plan a trip to go to Key West with no kids, with her mother and no Tyler. Oh, shocking. Catelyn's going to go out of town without her kids. Woo! That girl is always traveling without her kids, right? So she's planned this trip to Key West. And then Tyler kind of yells at Nova because she's watching her iPad and they're having an adult conversation around Nova. And then they start talking about how April, they have some friend over, they're eating wings in their kitchen, standing up, because that's always how I have people at my house, is standing up in my kitchen around my island. And he says they talk about how April has really come so far, and then they sort of cut to all these different arguments that she and April had about when she placed Carly for adoption. And she talked about how she has generational trauma from all of that, and she wants to break the cycle, and she hopes they've broken the cycle. And Tyler says that they've raised their children differently, and so hopefully that will help. Okay, Sounds good. Now over to Mackenzie. She's coaching her new cheer team, and Josh is taking care of the kids while she works. Josh is planning this vowel renewal, and she goes out to dinner with her like mom and her sisters for a girls' night, and they're all just like, "Oh, it's so great that Josh is doing this for you," and she's just like, I was so done with Josh, and then he like totally like he proposed to me, and I was done, and her sister's like, "I didn't think you would ever get divorced," and she's like, "I did. I'm having a hard time forgiving him. I can't forget what he did to me because, he cheated." And she says she isn't sure she wants the vowel renewal, and like she wants a clean slate, and everybody is like blah, blah, blah. Over to Maci. Mackenzie has her ultrasound. So Ryan's wife, Mackenzie Edwards, has her ultrasound. She's having a girl. And then they cut to Maci, who's in her doctor's office. She's getting an arm IUD implanted. Not to get pregnant, and she talks again about how Taylor did not want to get a vasectomy, and so she was like, I don't know, whatever, back to their house. She's talking about how expensive it was to do the implant. It was like $1,000, and for some people that's cost prohibitive, and so she was hoping that she could like try to help women who can't afford it, and she found this nonprofit that does stuff, and she might want to partner with them. And she has and Taylor's like, "Yes, you have a platform to make change, Maci, because you did so great with that PCOS challenge. We can do more." All right, then off to Cheyenne. Cheyenne went off to Thailand without Matt, and she said she had a really good time with her family. And then Corey and Taylor, they're at their apartment, and they announced that they're pregnant. She says she's 12 weeks along. And he's leaving for 2 months to go to the challenge. And while some people might think that's odd, this is their life. Taylor explains, like, this is how we make money. This is just our lives. So this is what we have to do. They admit they were not planning it, that initially they were not excited at all. Great to have that on camera. And then she says that as they've gotten further along, it's gotten more and more exciting. And Corey actually admits that he's super nervous to tell Cheyenne about the pregnancy because she's the one that wants a baby, and he was not planning to get pregnant with Taylor, and she might get mad at him about him having a baby. Imagine getting mad at someone for having a baby. That's weird. Okay, anyways, back to Kate and April. So now they're in Florida together. They go snorkeling, and they're sitting down having lunch, and April tells Kate that she's like really glad she feels better, and that she's not dealing with her depression anymore. She's dealing with the depression by treating the depression, April. So the medication is helping her, and she still has to work through it. So this is the one thing about the Kate story that's driving me nuts, is that she acts like this is just something that you get over. Once you get the meds, you can wean off and everything will be fine. And I think that's a really slippery slope with this kind of stuff, but that's just my opinion. April admits to Catelynn that like when she was growing up, she never wanted to tell her mother anything. And Kate starts talking about, again, this generational trauma, and it can continue on for years and years and years. And April's like, she wants her daughter to be able to tell her things versus going on social media. So she was complaining that Kate often will announce things on social media or say things on social media before she ever finds out from Kate herself, and that hurts her feelings. And Kate says, well, she's like always been afraid because of her mother's reaction. And April's like, well, sometimes I'm like, ah! But then after that, everything's fine, and I give you a hug. I don't know. I think it would be hard for Kate, in my opinion. I mean, do you remember how much they fought, how she screamed at her about giving up Carly and like all that stuff? I would have like whiplash if I was like Kate trying to figure out whether or not I should tell my mom something. Even though April's doing a lot better now and she's sober, I would still struggle because it would be like, how is my mom going to react? So I don't blame Kate in this one. All right. So then Mackenzie is over trying on dresses for her vowel renewals, and she's like in her dress, and she's like... She like looks super unhappy, so unhappy. After she gets really sad and crabby trying on wedding dresses, she goes and talks to Angie, her mom, and they have this heart-to-heart about what's going on with Angie's cancer. We know that Angie did pass away this fall, and so it was in this episode that Angie tells her that her blood counts are really low, and because of that, chemo is becoming impossible. Because her blood isn't good at this point. And it's really like an emotional conversation. And Angie says that she doesn't want to leave her husband. She doesn't want to leave her kids. And she doesn't want to miss Josh and Mackenzie coming back to a better place. She doesn't want to miss her kids, graduation or her grandkids' graduations. She wants to be able to be there for her children. And she's just like not ready to leave. And it's like super sad. All right, so then Maci, she goes to meet with the nonprofit that is going to do the birth control stuff, and they talk about how people can't perform it, and she's talking about how the nonprofit basically explains, like, birth control helps empower women to make the choice of when they want to get pregnant, because they can do their education, they can do their career. It's just it's a way for women to take control back in their lives. And they ask Maci to help with this event that they're putting on, and to see if she is interested in becoming more connected. And they like the size of her platform, so they think she can help. Now, back to Amber. So it's Amber's thing, but Amber still hasn't shown up on the screen yet. So we're like more than halfway into the episode, and now we're going to sit down with Andrew. And this interaction with Andrew was really weird, because they're in Andrew didn't want to film at the house because he just said it was like there was too many bad memories and he gets really bad anxiety there. And so they agreed to do it at a hotel, I think. And it felt less like an interview and more like an interrogation. So they were like, so why didn't you want to do this on camera? And he's just like, well, I get really bad anxiety, and this whole experience was hard for me because I was really scared that night. I didn't call the cops for no reason. I was concerned for my safety, for my son's safety. And that he's like, in the one breath, I really loved her, but in the other breath, I was scared. And he's like, it was hard because I didn't know what to do. And then the producer's like, so why'd you start filming her? Or when did you start recording her? It's, why would you record someone that's doing this to you? Which is a recommendation by a lot of advocates for DV, by the way. And he said, when she started to abuse me, I didn't think anyone would believe me, he said. And if I was going to tell someone, they'd be like, yeah, right. So he said it became like this knee-jerk reaction where he would press record on his phone anytime things would escalate, because he was afraid that if anyone found anything out about this, they would say that he was lying. They were like, then how many recordings do you have? And he said he didn't know how many recordings that he had. But that he had sent all of them to his sister, and he doesn't listen to it. He can't listen to it, and he wanted it out of his possession. And they were like, well, why are you releasing this out to the media? And he was like, I was never contacted or given an outlet to share my side of the story. And Amber has this huge platform, and there was a part of her story that was out there, and my piece was missing. And then he's like, well, what about it? You're doing this for money. And he's like, there was no money from the press. And then he's like, well, aren't you concerned that about James hearing the audio? Really, MTV? That's what you're worried about, is James hearing the audio? Really? God, and he says that he said, I almost regret giving my sister everything, but we all make mistakes. And I think in all of this, all I want is ownership from her. Honesty. He says, I want honesty. I want he goes mental illness is real, but I just want her to own what she did. I want her to say, I'll do whatever it takes to get this family back, to get in the good graces of my family. And he said, I never wanted a broken family. It's been one day at a time for me since then. I take care of James. I make sure he's cared for. And then he talks about how he can't move. And he's always, if I'm going to have to stay here, I'm going to have to get creative, because he has his whole life in California. That's where he's from. He was working in the reality TV industry, and he wants to go back there. And he talks about how he wants to get back to be creative. And this whole thing, again, felt really ugly to me. This whole narrative that somehow he would want he would want custody. He would want to take all these things away from Amber. Who wants that? Nobody wants a broken family. No one. You could hear him on a lot of those audios, being caring to her and loving her and wanting to help her. In fact, I have an email where he sent to Dr. Drew. I'll share that another day. Anyways, back to Corey and Cheyenne. Cheyenne finds out that Corey's having a baby, and she's just Corey sits down and he's like, Ryder's going to be a big sister. And she's like, you're kidding me. No, you're serious? You're kidding me. No, you're serious? And then she's like, can I ask a dumb question? And she's like, was this planned? And he goes, yes, that is a dumb question, because of course this is not planned. And she's like, you're the last person that I would expect to be a father again. And then he's just like, yeah, blah, 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 but I'm really excited. This is going to be great. And she's just like, oh, God. Is Cheyenne ever happy about anything? She's mean to Matt. She's mean to Corey. She's always like judgy. I don't get it. Okay, then Mackenzie, she sits down with Josh, and she basically admits to Josh that she doesn't want to do the vow renewal because she said, I hate what you did to me. I hate what you've done to our story. I hate how our story started. I hate this, like everything. Like, in order for me to feel good about this, we have to go from a clean slate. And I'm not there yet. And he says, like, everything he does from here on out is from true love. And she's like, I'm not ready to do the vows yet. So they put that whole thing on hold. And then Maci and Taylor go to this event for the nonprofit. The weird thing is that Maci and Taylor always have drivers. Can you imagine having that kind of privilege? Thanks, Teen Mom, to take you to an event with a driver. And why are you getting a driver to go to an event for a nonprofit? Like, do you have to get your party on at an event for a nonprofit? What? Like, you want to be an ambassador for this company and you're going to go get drunk, Maci? That's so weird to me. Or is Taylor going to get drunk? Why do you have to get drunk? Can you just not go to an event and not drink? So they have a driver. She's like, I'm picky about who I support because, I have such a big platform and, I have to back something. So it must be incredible. So they go in, they can't film. She comes out. She's kind of lit. And she's like, they have their beer in their glasses. They sit down in the car, which, by the way, is not illegal in the state of Tennessee. I learned to have an open bottle for passengers. She said she's really excited. And because, Maci apparently thinks very highly of herself, says she's going to become a board member. Because that's how it works. She thinks she could help them a lot. She thinks she can help a lot of young women. And she's like, I can't believe it's happening in Chattanooga. All right, then Corey and Shay. Shay goes to her parents' house and she tells them about Taylor's baby. And her mom's just like, let's just sit back and enjoy the show. And then Taylor and Corey put their announcements on social media. And Corey writes his statement. He reads it to Taylor. Taylor reads hers, and it's really sweet. And then they both start crying, and they hug each other out, and blah, blah, blah. And then back to April. And she said she wants to speak to her about she wants to speak to her mom about all the stuff related to Carly and all the stuff related to, like, what happened during that time. And she said that, so she says, like, after everything that happened with Carly, I felt like our relationship would never get to this point again. And then it cuts to all these times where April was like not wanting to deal with her, not wanting her to give her a place, not wanting her to place Carly, not wanting her to go through with this. There was like clips way back in the day from her and Tyler talking about like how disappointed her mom was, how much her mom hated her for doing this. And then she said when people ask her about whether, like, if she regrets placing Carly, she said she doesn't regret placing Carly because back then she had no idea what was in store for her life. She didn't know what was coming. And Carly has been able to have an amazing life, and that wouldn't have been possible had she kept her, because at that point in time she wasn't ready to be a mother. And then April finally admits to her and says, you made the right decision to place Carly. And then they hug it out. Okay. And then we wrap up this show with Amber. And she says she has to quit social media because of all the haters. But her lawyers tell her she has to shut her mouth and not say anything. And so then there's all these like media clips of like, Amber's quitting social media. Amber's doing this. Amber's doing this. Like, Amber didn't quit social media. She was forced to quit social media, you guys. Like, that's the truth. And then Gary ends up going over to this. And this is interesting because this was a sneak peek actually released by MTV before the season aired, and they cut a lot of this out because in the sneak peek released by the MTV in the beginning of the season, she makes the statement about like, you don't understand, like, there's only so much a person like me can take. Like, I was being pushed, and like people with mental illness will understand what I've gone through, and they'll understand why I reacted the way I did. But that whole part of that was cut out, and I wonder if part of that was cut out. And you can go back and see, it should still be on their Instagram where they do a sneak peek of like, and Amber breaks her silence. And I did a video about it too. And it's not there anymore. All of that stuff about people will understand and she can only take so much. She says there's so much going on in her life. She could only take so much And then they start talking about how she is getting like all kinds of nasty messages from her. And she's like, I'm battling mental illness. And you can hear me on the audio say, you can only take, and then it cuts out. And then she starts crying and she said, I regret what happened that night. I could have done more. I have a lot of guilt. I wasn't aware of myself more than I should have been. I should have been more self-aware. And then she said, I want her family. And she said, when I hear the audio, I'm ashamed. I was disgusted. Now you have it. And I want my family. So they cut out the whole part about her saying she wishes she would have left that night. So that was in the audio that was in the clip that they put out before the season started, was she wished she would have left that night. It's all because of her mental illness, and people that have mental illness will understand that she was provoked to do this. And I'm wondering if MTV cut that out because of all of the backlash that's been going on since the show aired, and the ratings have been bombing. So that's the end of the episode. And next week, apparently, Amber's going to introduce her boyfriend. Mackenzie and Josh are going to do something. Cheyenne and Corey's going to leave for the challenge. Who knows? Catelynn and Tyler will probably argue about something. Mackenzie will probably be mad at Josh. And yeah, so that's where we're at. All right, you guys. So that's it. What are your thoughts about this whole episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you still watching? I am still continue to be disappointed. There was absolutely no PSAs for any sort of victims of DV. I'm disappointed with how the MTV portrayed Andrew in his interview and how they treated him like he was the perpetrator. And the only thing that's good to see here is that Maci appears to be doing some good things with nonprofits, which is awesome. So it's good to see her making some positive changes. And it's good to see Kate and April trying to build back their relationship and mend some broken bridges. So those are positives I got from this episode. All right, you guys, I'll be back later with more. Make sure you tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Bye.